I can't believe you did this!
Please calm down, I'm sorry.
Sorry isn't enough!
Please forgive me.
The day my marriage ended, I was still wearing my kitchen apron. I had not done anything wrong. I had not cheated. I had not stolen. I had not lied to my husband. But there I was, standing in the middle of my own parlor, in the house I had scrubbed and cooked and prayed in for years, watching the man I loved look at me like I was something dirty he had stepped on. His jaw was tight, his eyes were cold, and in his hand was a piece of paper, a handwritten note that had already destroyed everything before I even opened my mouth. Someone had told him my deepest secret, the one thing I had buried so far down inside me that I had almost convinced myself it did not exist anymore. And the person who told him did not just tell the truth, they twisted it, poisoned it, dressed it up like a betrayal when all it ever was survival. That someone was my closest friend, the woman who held my hand at my wedding, the woman I cried with, prayed with, shared food with for 15 years. My name is Mirabel, and I want you to listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, because what happened to me can happen to any woman who forgets that not every person who calls you sister is your blood. It started on a Tuesday evening. I remember it was Tuesday because I had just returned from the market, my wrapper still damp from the afternoon heat, my feet dusty from the red earth road. The smell of egusi soup was already filling the compound. I had left it on low fire that morning. My husband David was supposed to return by nightfall. We had a good life, not perfect, but good. The kind of life where you wake up and thank God before your feet touch the ground. But that evening, David did not greet me. He was sitting in the parlor, his hands on his knees, his jaw tight, the kind of jaw that means a man has been sitting with something heavy for too long. "Sit down, Mirabel," he said. I laughed a small laugh. Let me put down my basket first. I said, "Sit down, Mirabel." The soup smell that had felt like home just moments ago now made my stomach turn. I sat. He looked at me like a stranger, like he was seeing me for the first time and did not like what he found. "Before we married," he said slowly, each word coming out like he was measuring them on a scale, "did you have a child?" The room tilted. My hands went cold. Not because I was guilty, no. I went cold because I knew that only one person in this world knew that secret. Only one. And she had promised me on her mother's grave that she would carry it with her forever. My closest friend, Sandra. But before I tell you what happened next, if you are watching this and you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, this story is for you. And I want you to stay with me till the very end, because what Mirabel did to reclaim her life will shake you to your bones. If you are new here, please subscribe now, because the stories we tell on this channel are not just stories. They are warnings, they are weapons, and they are wisdom. I looked at my husband. I wanted to speak, but my mouth had forgotten how to form words, because the question he asked was not the problem. The problem was the look on his face. It was not the face of a man who wanted to understand. It was the face of a man who had already been given a version of the truth, a twisted, poisoned version, and had swallowed it whole. "Who told you?" I whispered. He slapped a piece of paper on the table. A handwritten note. I did not even need to read it. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Sandra. My chest cracked open like dry harmattan earth. I had told Sandra my secret 6 weeks ago. We were sitting on her veranda, drinking zobo, the night breeze cooling our faces. She had held my hand and said, "Mirabel, secrets carried in shame become poison. Tell me, I will carry it with you." And like a fool wrapped in trust, I told her. I told her that before I met David, before this life, I had been young and desperate and alone in Lagos. I had gotten pregnant, the man disappeared, my family had threatened to disown me, and in my panic and poverty and pain, I had given the baby, a boy, up for adoption. It was the most painful thing I had ever done. It was also the bravest, and I had spent years making peace with it. But Sandra had taken that peace from me. And what David read in that note was not the truth. It was a version of it laced with poison. She hid a child from you. She is not who she says she is. You deserve to know what kind of woman you married. I opened my mouth to explain, but David stood up, and the look on his face told me that the explanation would not matter tonight. And maybe not ever.
Let me take you back, because you cannot understand what Sandra did without understanding who she was, or rather, who she pretended to be. We had been friends since secondary school, 15 years. She was at my introduction. She was my chief bridesmaid. She held my hand when I miscarried my first pregnancy after marriage. She was there for every funeral, every celebration, every ordinary Wednesday when life felt too heavy. Or so I believed. The morning after David confronted me, he left the house before dawn. He did not say where he was going. He did not take my calls. He simply disappeared into the morning like smoke. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, my bedroom, the room I had decorated with my own hands, the curtains I had sewn myself, the photographs of our wedding still hanging on the wall, and I sobbed until I had no tears left. Then I sobbed dry. My daughter, 7 years old, came and found me there. She touched my face with her small warm hand and said, "Mama, are you sick?" That broke me completely, because it was not just my marriage that was cracking. It was my daughter's world, her security, the roof over her head, the father who kissed her forehead every night. All of it was suddenly fragile, all because of one woman and one whisper. I called Sandra. She picked up on the second ring, which told me she was waiting for me to call. Her voice was soft, careful, already prepared. "Mirabel, I heard." "You told him," I said. My voice was quieter than I expected, quiet like still water before a flood. Silence. "Mirabel, I had to. He had a right." "You had to?" I stood up slowly. "Sandra, you had to?" He was asking questions. Someone else was going to tell him. I was protecting. Protecting who? Him or yourself? She went quiet again. And in that silence, I heard it, the thing that had always been there and I had never allowed myself to see. The slight hesitation, the almost satisfaction in her voice she was working hard to mask. I hung up the phone. I sat very still for a long time. Then I began to think. In the weeks that followed, David moved into his brother's house. He sent word through his sister that he needed time. His family, his mother especially, had already started whispering that I was a woman of secrets, a woman not to be trusted. His mother, that woman who had never fully accepted me, was now using this as her long-awaited ammunition. I went to Sandra's house. I went because I needed to look her in the eye. She opened the door and immediately started crying. Big theatrical tears, the kind of tears that are designed to make you feel sorry for the person who wronged you. I made a mistake. I was just trying to help. I looked at her. I looked at her fine sitting room, her new television, the photographs on her wall. And in one photograph, I saw something that made my heart stop. It was a photograph of her and David's younger brother, Thomas. They were standing very close, laughing. The photo was recent, I could tell, by the dress she was wearing. She had worn that dress to my daughter's birthday party just 2 months ago. My mind moved slowly at first, then very fast. Thomas, who had always brought Sandra around to our house, who had always found reasons to visit, who had been at our home the very evening just 3 weeks before when David and I were arguing about money and I had shouted in frustration that I sometimes felt alone in this marriage. I looked at Sandra. Her tears were drying now, replaced by something else, something almost imperceptible. Watchfulness. She was watching to see how much I knew. I smiled slowly and I said, "Thank you for your time, Sandra." I walked out and I began to prepare.
There's something that happens to a woman when she has lost everything. Something quiet and cold and absolute. It settles in the chest like a stone. It does not burn. It does not rage. It simply sits there, steady and patient. And it whispers, "Now we plan." I was that woman. David had been gone for 3 weeks. His lawyer had sent a letter. The word separation was in the letter, sitting there in clean black ink like it was nothing, like it was not 15 years of my life, like it was not my daughter's world. I read the letter, I folded it, I put it on the table. Then I started writing a list. The first thing on my list was the truth about Sandra. I am not a foolish woman. I had not spent 15 years as this woman's friend without learning her patterns. Sandra had a weakness. She could not keep a story straight across multiple people. She always adjusted the story depending on who she was talking to, and she always needed someone to admire her for her honesty. So I began to make quiet visits. I went to our mutual friend, Grace, who lived on the other side of town. Grace was a gossip, harmless but thorough. I told Grace in a sad voice that I had heard that someone had told David my secret, and I had no idea who could have done such a thing. I said I trusted Sandra completely. Grace's eyes flickered. I saw it. "Mirabel," Grace said carefully, "I do not want to be in the middle of anything." "You are not in the middle," I said gently. "I'm just confused." Grace looked down at her hands. Then she said, "Sandra called me the night before your husband confronted you. She asked me if I thought David deserved to know everything about his wife." I felt the cold stone in my chest grow heavier, but I kept my face soft. "What did she tell her?" "She told her it was not her place." Grace shook her head. "She told me she was going to do what was right. I thought she was talking about something else. I didn't know." "It's okay," I said. "I'm not angry." But I was not finished. My second visit was to David's sister, Rachel. Rachel had always liked me more than her mother did. I went to her with tea and biscuits, and I sat with her for 2 hours. I did not talk about my secret. I did not defend myself. I talked about Thomas. Casual, soft, almost accidental. I've been so grateful for family during this time. Even Sandra has been such a support. She and Thomas seem close. I'm glad he has someone around him. Rachel's cup stopped halfway to her lips. "Sandra and Thomas," she said. "They've been spending time together. I saw a photo." I shrugged. "It's nice. I hope something good comes of it for them." Rachel said nothing, but I watched the information land behind her eyes and begin to spread like oil on water. I went home. I tucked my daughter into bed. I sat in the dark and I waited. I had planted 2 seeds. Now I needed to find the tree they would grow into. Here was what Sandra had forgotten about me. I had spent years watching her, the way you watch someone you love. And when you watch someone that closely for that long, you do not just see their good days. You see their cracks, their fears, the small shameful things they think no one notices. I noticed everything. Sandra had told me years ago, in a moment of drunken honesty, something she had never told another living soul. Something that, if it came to light, would destroy her reputation in our community far more thoroughly than anything she had done to me. Before she married her husband, Sandra had been involved in a scheme, a land scheme. She and 2 men had sold plots of land to families in our community, land that did not belong to them. 3 families had lost money.
Real money, the kind of money that took years to gather. The scheme had been discovered, but the men had taken the blame. Sandra had walked away clean because no one had connected her name. I knew her name was connected because she had told me. I had the name of one of the men, Victor, who had taken prison time for that scheme. He had been released 2 years ago. I had never used this information. I had buried it because she was my friend, and I believed people could change. But Sandra had made one crucial mistake the day she destroyed my marriage. She had reminded me that some people do not deserve the grace you extend to them. I tracked down Victor. It took me 4 days. He was living in Aba, working in a small hardware shop. I went to him with a simple envelope of money, not a bribe, a retainer. I explained that I needed a written account of everything that happened during the land scheme. I told him that justice had never been fully served and that I was willing to help him get it in exchange for the full truth. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "The woman who organized everything, the one who found the buyers and handled the money, was a woman called Sandra." "I know," I said. "Write it down." He did. I had the document notarized. I made 3 copies. Then I took 1 copy to the families who had lost money, families who had been living with that loss for years, who had no idea the woman who attended church with them every Sunday was the architect of their suffering. I did not do this in my own name. I submitted it anonymously through a community leader who was known for resolving such matters. But before the matter became public, I made one last move. I called Sandra. "I want to meet," I said, "somewhere private. I need to tell you something about what I found in Victor's records." The silence on the line was so thick I could have caught it. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "What records?" "Come and we will talk," I said calmly, "before anyone else does." She came. Of course she came. We sat in a quiet buka at the edge of town. She was wearing too much powder, the way she always did when she was nervous. Her hands would not stay still on the table. I ordered us food. Sandra could not eat. I ate calmly. "Mirabel, whatever you think you know, I don't think, I know." I placed a copy of Victor's document on the table. I placed it face down, gently, and slid it toward her. She did not touch it. She did not need to. Her face had already told me everything. "The families are already talking," I said calmly. "The community leader has already received information. Your name was surfaced within the week. I cannot stop it." I paused. I took a slow sip of my palm wine. I said, "But I can slow it down." She looked up at me, desperate now. The performance had dropped. This was the real Sandra, the frightened, calculating, shameless Sandra, underneath all the tears and the loyalty and the love she had performed for 15 years. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you," I said, "to go to my husband, and I want you to tell him the truth. The whole truth, that you told him a lie dressed as a secret, that the child I gave up was not a betrayal, it was a young woman's survival, that you twisted my story out of envy, not love." I leaned forward, "And I want you to say it in front of his family." She shook her head slowly. "Mirabel, I can't," she whispered. "You can," I said, "or I can step back and let what is coming find you at full speed. Your choice." She cried. Real tears this time, I think. Not that it changed anything. "Why didn't you just come to me?" she whispered. "Why didn't you just forgive me?" I looked at her. I let the silence sit between us like a wall. "You did not ask for forgiveness," I said. "You asked me to disappear quietly while you enjoyed what you had taken from me. Those are not the same thing." I stood up. I paid the bill, and I walked out into the evening air, my back straight, my head high, the sunset painting the road ahead of me orange and gold.
Sandra went to David. I do not know exactly what she said to him. I was not there. But his sister Rachel called me 3 days later with a voice full of something between shock and respect. "She came to my mother's house," Rachel said. "She sat in front of all of us. She cried, real crying. She said she had told David a version of your secret that was not true. She said you had done nothing wrong. She said," Rachel paused, "she said she had always been jealous of what you and my brother had." I sat down slowly. "How did your brother take it?" I asked.
Rachel was quiet for a moment. He sat there for a long time without speaking. Then he asked her to leave. Then he sat some more. Then he called me and asked for your number. I pressed the phone against my ear hard, as if I could squeeze more meaning from the silence. He lost it, Rachel said softly. Not in anger. He kept saying he had thrown away something real. David called me that same evening. We did not shout. We did not accuse each other. We spoke the way two people speak when they have both been burned and are standing in the ash of what used to be their home, deciding whether to rebuild or walk away. He said he was sorry. I said, I know. I said I had a son I had never held past 3 days. I said I had carried that grief like a stone in my chest for years. I said I had told Sandra because I wanted to stop carrying it alone, just for one evening. I said her betrayal had not changed who I was. It had only revealed who she was. He listened, all of it. He said I should have listened to you first. I should have come to you. Yes, I said, you should have. We did not get back together that night. It took months. Months of honesty. Months of sitting with uncomfortable truths. Months of my daughter seeing her father again and running into his arms at the door. But we rebuilt, slowly, like a house after rain, stronger in the places that had cracked. As for Sandra, the community matter reached its conclusion. 3 families received partial restitution. Her name was not broadcast publicly, but within the circles that mattered, people knew. Slowly, the invitations stopped coming. The church greetings became shorter. The warmth in people's eyes when they saw her began to fade. She did not go to prison, but she lived in a kind of exile of her own making, surrounded by a community that had quietly closed its doors to her. She called me once, about a year later. I am sorry, she said. Truly. I was envious of everything you had. Your marriage, your joy, the way people looked at you. I wanted to feel powerful. I wanted to be the one who knew something no one else knew. And then I wanted to use it. I listened. Then I said, I hope you find peace, Sandra. I genuinely do. But I am not the place you will find it. And I hung up. There is something I want to say to every woman and every man who is watching this. Your joy will attract people who love you. It will also attract people who secretly hate you for having it. And the most dangerous among them will come wearing the face of friendship. They will listen. They will lean in close. They will say you can tell me anything. And they are telling the truth. You can tell them anything. But they are keeping everything you say in a pocket, saved for the day they need a weapon. The lesson is not to stop trusting people. The lesson is to understand that trust is not given because someone calls you friend. Trust is earned in years of consistent action, in the small quiet moments, in what a person does when you are not watching, when there is nothing to gain. Mirabel's story ends not with bitterness. It ends with a woman who chose herself, who refused to disappear quietly, who understood that revenge carried with dignity is not revenge at all. It is justice, and that rebuilding after fire is not weakness. It is the most human thing we can do. If this story moved you, if it warned you, if it reminded you of something you needed to hear, please share it. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. We tell stories here that carry truth. Every story on this channel is a lantern, and some days you need a lantern more than anything else. Leave a comment below. Have you ever trusted someone who used your vulnerability against you? Tell us. You are not alone. Until next time, stay wise, stay whole, and protect your peace like it is the only thing you have, because some days it is.